As Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans desperately try to spin the fact that Trump got outplayed by Canada and Mexico in the unnecessary trade wars with them that he triggered, one MAGA congressman in particular suffered the ultimate humiliation on live TV when asked a simple question on this topic, and you have to see it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to talk about in this video. It's so funny to see MAGA congresspeople debase themselves and ultimately their constituents by trying to rewrite history in favor of Donald Trump. Remember, it's a cult of personality, so they have to spin everything Donald Trump says and does as a masterclass demonstration of statecraft, okay? Even when it is obviously not. I want you to see this clip in which CNN's Caitlin Collins is speaking to a MAGA Republican congressman. We're going to play the clip in question. We're going to get into Caitlin's debunking of the whole thing, and then we'll go back and see the full clip, the full exchange between these two. But here is a MAGA congressman humiliating himself on live TV.
Comes through legal ports of entry. But on this specifically, he called this off, saying that he had won concessions from both of them, but is there a tangible concession in your view?
Yeah, absolutely. He won the concessions, and part of it is well, it's a commitment from Trudeau that wasn't there to help with fentanyl, to help with the black market.
Well, he announced the plan
and to secure the border.
He announced that plan though 6 weeks ago, back in December.
Well, at least he's reiterated it and formalized it, and
it's rap.
Well, at least he's reiterated that thing he already promised to do. It's so damn funny. What's the tangible thing? Well, the tangible success is he said he was going to do what he already said he was going to do before we threatened a mutually painful trade war, which would hurt Canadian consumers and American consumers. You can't make this shit up. I mean, he couldn't even look her in the eye. He had to look down. Well, he repeated it. It's so sad. And again, that's how you know, folks, that obviously MAGA is they're gonna try to spin this. But when you actually press them on it, no real meaningful concessions were made. And Caitlin Collins goes into this before her interview with Congressman Davidson. So let's hear her debunk of this notion that Donald Trump employed master persuasion, master negotiation, and then we'll play more of the interview between the two.
President Trump is declaring victory for now in his trade standoffs with Mexico and Canada, with the president pausing for at least the next month on actions that could have dramatically increased prices for Americans on everything from cars to avocados. But Trump, the same person who, of course, on the cover of The Art of the Deal, said this today about his goal ultimately with Canada.
What I'd like to see, Canada become our 51st state.
That was after his first phone call with Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau today, but before his second one. I was there in the East Room shortly after that second call had ended. Trump here overall seems to have won an agreement where Canada is really going to do what it was already going to do. The Prime Minister saying this $1.3 billion border plan that he announced back in December is going to go into place. And as for Mexico, this is how President Trump explained that result.
They've agreed to put in 10,000 soldiers permanently, like forever, 10,000 soldiers at their side of the border and stop fentanyl and illegal aliens from coming into our country.
According to Mexico's defense ministry, there are already 15,000 troops nearly there on the border. It's a deployment that started in 2019.
Yeah, so again, I know we've beaten this like a dead horse, but I'm sorry, it's just worth repeating. It's so worth repeating because so much of this relies on perception. We are in a post-fact universe, and Donald Trump really accelerated that trajectory, assuming that we were on it to begin with. Remember his former advisor, Kellyanne Conway, saying, well, you have facts and I have alternative facts? It really accelerated this notion where MAGA can just a la carte pick and choose what it finds useful, and you can present them all the evidence in the world, and very often, not always, but very often, you just give you the finger and say, I don't believe it, or it's fake news, right? Just reflexively. There's a permission structure within MAGA that allows you to just disregard inconvenient facts and lie with impunity, and that's what we're seeing from much of right-wing, alternate, and even mainstream media about Donald Trump's trade wars with Canada and Mexico. But Caitlin Collins is right. I mean, the vast and overwhelming majority of the concessions that Mexico and Canada made were already in effect. Okay, Mexico already has, as she says, nearly 15,000 troops stationed at the border and has had about that level for 5 years. And she made a similar commitment to President Biden, or rather the Mexican government did under her predecessor AMLO in 2021. And Biden didn't need to threaten tariffs or a trade war. It was just simple diplomacy to get 10,000 Mexican National Guard troops to the U.S.-Mexico border because Biden was a vastly superior diplomat for the most part. Again, didn't need to risk stock market crashes or trade wars to get it done. Caitlin Collins also mentioned something specific there, 2019. As we've discussed in previous videos, Donald Trump was president in 2019, and he also used the threat of tariffs to demand that the Mexican National Guard put troops that the Mexican government put the Mexican National Guard at the U.S.-Mexico border. So they did. And fentanyl traffic and fentanyl deaths continued to rise under Donald Trump in 2019 and 2020 because the vast majority of fentanyl comes into the United States from Mexico by way of American citizens through legal ports of entry, not undocumented Mexican immigrants. So I don't expect that this will have a material impact because it already would have under Trump if that were possible. So now let's go to the fuller conversation between the congressman and Caitlin Collins. And just again, wait for that beautiful moment where, well, what happened? Well, they repeated what they said they were already going to do. Great victory for President Trump. So stupid.
My congressional source tonight is the Republican Congressman Warren Davidson of Ohio. And Congressman, it's great to have you here. What does the U.S. have today that it did not have before this morning from Canada or Mexico?
Well, look, President Trump is focused on trade. And look, before I was in Congress, I was in manufacturing. And, our manufacturing companies, the number one elephant in the room is China. And with Canada, with Mexico, with a number of Western Hemisphere countries, you see them continually doing more and more business with China, including Colombia. So what I think Trump is doing right now is setting conditions for everybody to be reminded to not take the United States of America for granted, and that we need to be your number one trading partner. And when the time comes, you work with us to deal with the challenge of China.
And the China tariffs are still going into effect. They are not getting a reprieve like Canada and Mexico are. But did the White House, in your view, extract anything from Canada or Mexico to call off this trade war?
Well, I think absolutely. He got both Sheinbaum and Trudeau to acknowledge we need to help deal with fentanyl. We need to deal with the black market. And the black market is wrecking our country.
But again, they move the goalpost all the time because Trump says it's about fentanyl. Well, first Trump says it's about the trade imbalance. Then he says it's about drugs, right? He moves the goalpost because, number one, he's a pathological liar. Number two, he's an idiot with a terrible memory. So it's entirely possible he forgot the original goalpost and just made it up on the fly, ad hoc. And also he knows that his base won't hold him accountable to this and say, okay, well, you said this, then you said something else. Again, the shamelessness and the inconsistency and the hypocrisy are MAGA superpowers. They need it to do as well as they do. But let's think about this. So either way, if it's trade or drugs, this was a failure. The trade situation between Canada, Mexico, and the United States, that deal, that paradigm that Donald Trump says is screwing us right now, Donald Trump was the one who signed the deal, the renewed NAFTA, the U.S., Mexico, Canada joint agreement. That was his deal, his baby, and he touted it as one of the greatest deals of all time. So by his logic, we are being screwed by his own deal, right? So that means Trump gets all the blame, or should get all the blame, and perhaps we should point that out more relentlessly, number one. Number two, if it's about drugs, well, again, the vast majority of drugs are coming not from Canada into the United States, right? I mean, Canada is like a rounding error in terms of the amount of fentanyl that comes from Canada into the United States. The vast majority of it in this context between the two countries is coming in from Mexico. But again, the vast majority of that is coming in by way of American citizens through legal points of entry. So what the hell is the National Guard going to do about that when the National Guard didn't stop this or even meaningfully dent it under Trump in 2019? None of it makes any sense. Donald Trump comes off like a loser and a moron, no matter how you slice it if you dig into this. But that doesn't matter to MAGA.
It's killing tens of thousands of Americans every year, far more than we've lost in many years in any kind of terrorist combat, any kind of thing like that. We're getting tens of thousands of Americans. And the thing about fentanyl It's not like people intentionally take fentanyl. We had a young lady Lizzie Murphy. She took a Xanax at a party. Not a great idea, but it's not supposed to kill you. It was laced with fentanyl. Dead at 21 years old, and that's happening. Thousands and thousands of families.
No
all over
one's
the country.
denying that, of course. I mean, it's ravaged hometowns. Everyone understands the fentanyl crisis. But the amount of fentanyl that comes from Canada is nowhere near the scale of the southern border. A lot of it comes through legal ports of entry. But on this specifically, he called this off, saying that he had won concessions from both of them. But is there a tangible concession in your view?
Yeah, absolutely. He won the concessions, and part of it is it's a commitment from Trudeau that wasn't there to help with fentanyl, to help with the black market.
Well, he announced the plan
and to secure the border.
He announced that plan though 6 weeks ago, back in December.
Well, at least he's reiterated it and formalized it. And here's the thing: when you look at it, you say, "Oh well, why so much drama?" Well, because you very publicly put them in a position where they're clearly going to do it. And
So dumb. He's scrambling there. They form why all the drama? I mean, just so stupid. The concession was Trump got them to repeat themselves. That's it. Why all the drama? Why the threat of eroding these crucial trading relationships in an agreement that you made in the first place, dumbass? Well, it's pushing them to repeat themselves. That's it. Trudeau's commitments from Canada, these were made under President Biden back in December. No points for Trump there. Mexico, again, we've been through. Like, it's just so, but this is what they're reduced to. And I have no sympathy for them, and neither should you. I mean, they probably feel some sense of shame, but shamelessness is what animates the MAGA movement in addition to cruelty. And they probably feel that they have to do this if they want to win re-election. And sadly, they're probably right. If you want to be an elected Republican in today's climate, you have to be a shy or proud MAGA. Now, it's going to make it hard sometimes to win a general election because MAGA is generally not popular, but you have to be a Trump ass kisser to do this. But they help create the situation, so I have no sympathy. It's just so funny in real time to watch them fold and crumble under simple questions, just like what we saw here. Great stuff. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.